Yasodanandana Prahladananda Yasodanandana Prahladananda Yamunakira Vanacharya Yamunakira Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gaya Vipad Paramahams Rivadacharya Asadhara Satushi Siman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Smarad Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Lord Premanande Haribol Glories to the sound devotees All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga Om Agyanati Vinodasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Pradina Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaskate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishuvana Siddha Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Panchakapa Drivescha Kripa Sindhu Vyavascha Patiranam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srila Prabhupada Lamrita. Yeah, this is chapter something. In every town and village. Sakyavesh Avatar. Sakyavesh Avatar and their particular functions are mentioned in the Vedic literature. For example, the Emperor Prithu possessed the Shakti for God conscious administration. The four Kumaras possessed the Shakti of transcendental knowledge, and Narada Muni possessed the Shakti of devotional service. Lord Buddha, whose name and activities are described in Srimad Bhagavatam, is also a Saktivesh avatar, and even other divinely empowered personalities outside the Vedic culture, such as Jesus Christ and Muhammad, are accepted by Vaishnavacharyas as Saktivesh avatars. Prabhupada Lamrita Ki Jai. So today is the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, on such a disappearance day, would point out that for the Acharya, there is a disappearance here, it means the appearance somewhere else. Just like the sun, when it disappears from our vision, it doesn't disappear, it simply appears somewhere else. Similarly, the Acharya comes and gives his teachings and then goes somewhere else to continue on with the mission of Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada was such an Acharya, appeared in the family of the great Vaishnava, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Kedarnath Adhikar, who was a magistrate and the principal person who was managing the Jagannath temple. He saw that there was a need to reestablish Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, which had been overtaken by or superseded by different types of Sahaji movements, the owls, the bowels, the Sati Bekis, etc. He felt a need to reestablish the pure teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and he understood that he needed a successor, so he prayed to Lord Jagannath, to Lord Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to send him a successor, and that successor was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, who established from his early beginning, was indicated to be great personality, and Prabhupada gave the example in one disappearance lecture that when he was only a little baby, Lord Jagannath's Rath Yatra was going on, and it stopped before Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house, and his wife took the little baby and brought it up to the lotus feet of Lord Jagannath on the cart, which he was the magistrate's wife. He was allowed to do that. And when she put the head of her son on the lotus feet of Lord Jagannath, one garland fell off Lord Jagannath and landed on Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Similarly, Prabhupada gives the example of when he was a child, 3 or 4 years old, or maybe 2 or 3 years old. One day he took a mango that was supposed to be offered to Lord Jagannath, and he ate it. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur mildly rebuked him that he should not eat anything which is not first offered to Lord Jagannath. And although he was only a small child, 2, 3 years old, he took it so seriously that throughout his life he never ate a ripe mango again. Whenever he was offered a ripe mango, at least, he'd always say that I cannot eat a ripe mango because I'm an offender. So such is the mark of a great Acharya who took Krishna consciousness so seriously. Similarly, he established the Gaudiya Math, which was a predominant movement within India. He established around 60 centers there. He sent disciples to the Western world, specifically to England and to Europe, in order to try to establish Krishna consciousness there. And he understood that in Kali Yuga, it is not that always one is going to be able to provide an Acharya, and therefore he also set up the management system, or suggested the management system of a GBC, because generally speaking, in the absence of Acharya, then everyone has their own viewpoints on everything, including Krishna consciousness. And therefore he felt that collective management would be assuring the continuation of the disciple succession, and that eventually by such collective management, someone or someones would come to the platform of actually understanding what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is and fulfilling it. And Srila Prabhupada continued on with the same idea. He didn't appoint anyone as the next leader. He felt that everyone had the opportunity who's hearing the teachings of Srila Prabhupada and following them, become the next leader. that the next leader would emerge, not necessarily out of the ranks of the administrators, but it would emerge out of the ranks of those who are actually seriously taking to the process and trying to execute it. Therefore, Prabhupada emphasized, at least at the end of his appearance, that we should learn cooperation. Cooperation is the mark of a person who's trying to reach the Madhyama Adhikari platform, not necessarily on the highest platform of realizing Krishna, that Krishna and his name are non-different, or as one has realized one's spiritual identity, but one is fully 100% dedicated in one's body, mind, and words to spreading Krishna consciousness, but at least by some cooperation, some assistance with each other, trying to elevate each other in Krishna consciousness, that amongst Prabhupada's followers, someone or someones would emerge who would actually understand the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so that this simple succession could go on, and that people can be benefited by understanding what the actual path is to becoming conscious of Krishna. Because most people aren't interested in becoming conscious of Krishna. In fact, most people are perfectly happy being unconscious of Krishna. But for those who actually want to become conscious of Krishna, a clear direction has to be there. And therefore, Prabhupada gave us his books, so that taking shelter of his books, even one as the GBC, for instance, is supposed to be the highest managerial authority, but to manage the movement, which is not a material movement, it's a spiritual movement, still, it needs guidance from Prabhupada's books. Assimilating the books, collectively trying to reach decisions based on Prabhupada's instructions, example, so that one can come up with the best possible solution to problems, and that by trying to execute such problem or try to solve such problems under the guidance of Prabhupada's books, instructions, and example, that one can at least learn from experience. Otherwise, without taking shelter of the pure devotee, at least especially the instructions and examples that he left, then one may try so many different ways, but one usually will fall into the category of not learning by hearing, not learning by experience, and not learning at all. And if one realizes that one is not learning, then one should look for the solution why one is not learning. But if one doesn't even look for this, if one makes the same mistake over and over again and doesn't bother trying to figure out what one is doing wrong, then one is in the category of not only less intelligent, but one is a fool. Only a fool keeps on doing the same thing over and over again, same mistakes, and doesn't even inquire why they're doing it, what's wrong. So, solution to the problem is to take shelter of the Mahabhagavad Srila Prabhupada, who saw everything objectively and clearly, at least especially in terms of helping us become conscious of Krishna, which is what this movement is meant for. Not meant for developing our health or our welfare or anything else. It's only, although those things are subsidiary and can be helpful, but it's meant to developing our Krishna consciousness under any circumstance. So for that reason, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada was a great acharya. Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada, took his instructions seriously, executed them to his heart and soul, and therefore this movement developed. And similarly, his followers, as much as we take Prabhupada's instructions and example to our heart and soul, then at least our Krishna consciousness will develop. Otherwise, then we may come back again, and hopefully there'll be something to come back to that will help us progress further in Krishna consciousness in our future sojourns in this material world. So today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 17, The Descent of the River Ganges, and we're up to text number 5. No, I don't. Yeah, I'm not even so sure. There'll be some purport in there. So this Bhagavatam is for our imagination, because it's probably not going to be within our lifetime's experience. But at least we can try to imagine and try to see the logic and the organization behind the universe. The universe is not going on accidentally. It's going on in a very systematic way, not in any way that one can imagine by oneself. And every creation is somewhat different, but this is some creation that Shukadeva Goswami is describing. It's not to us, for us to try to realize. It's beyond our capacity in the present lifetime to realize what's being described, but at least to acknowledge that there's a universe out there beyond our experience, and that we should try to appreciate that whoever created it had some vast intelligence beyond our comprehension. So this is text 5 translation. On top of Mount Meru, the Ganges divides into 4 branches, each of which gushes in different directions, east, west, north, and south. These branches, known by the names of Sita, Alaknanda, Chakshu, and Bhadra, flow down to the ocean, Mount Meru. So here it describes Jambudweep, which in the center of Jambudweep is Mount Meru. And on Mount Meru, the residence of the principal 4 demigods, probably not their only residence, but there's Brahma, Indra, Chandra, Vayu. They have their residences on the top of Mount Meru. And these billions of airplanes, they deposit their water apparently on Mount Meru. And all over Jambudweep, these Ganges waters flow into these 4 different divisions, and we happen to be on Bharatvarsha, 1/3 of Bharatvarsha specifically, and we're surrounded, the whole Jambudweep is surrounded by an ocean of salt water. So our conception that, whatever our conception is, the earth is round or flat, but if we're supposed to be on the bottom, if we're supposed to be on the north part, we're supposed to be on a globe. And here in New Zealand, we're supposed to be on the bottom of the globe. It's only a wonder that we haven't fallen off yet. Logically speaking, how can you be on the bottom of a globe and not fall off? I don't know how they explain it. Maybe they say we're going so fast that we don't have time to fall off. In any case, either the Srimad Bhagavatam is correct, and that who was that who took the chariot and was divided the Bhumandala into 7 different Priyavrata Maharaj. So either Priyavrata Maharaj divided Bhumandala into 7 different varshas and 7 different oceans, or Bhagavatam is just a fairy tale. So if we're on a globe, then the question is that why is it that, for instance, spinning why is it that if you go east or west, it takes you the same amount of time to get to the place? In other words, if the earth is spinning, then if you're flying the opposite direction, you should get there quicker. And if the earth is spinning and you're flying to get to your direction, then it should take you a longer amount of time because the earth keeps on moving away from you at a super speed. But why is it that it doesn't make any difference whether you go east or west? Some variation because there's some wind factor sometimes. Other than that, it's the same thing. So there's so many illogical reasoning behind it. That the Earth is a globe. But Prabhupada didn't emphasize that very much because otherwise people get involved in these controversies and they forget about Krishna consciousness. Whether the Earth is a globe or it's flat, we still have to grow old, become diseased, and die, and take another birth, either spiritual or material. But still, just as a matter of reasoning, when we get to the fifth canto, we should understand that this fifth canto is not an imagination, nor is it another reality that it's talking about reality. If we had the ability to go to Mount Meru, we could actually see the demigods there. But we can't even get, to fly. I'm flying today to Perth. It's a big endeavor just to go a little ways to Perth. What to speak of trying to get on top of a mountain, which is 100. I forget how many. Yojana is high. 80,000 yojana is high, which is like 8 times 640,000 miles away. More than that, actually. But anyway, just an estimate. So we may not see these things, but at least we can understand that something, this conception. Not that we should finally decide that the Earth is flat and spend our whole life trying to convince people that the Earth is flat. It really won't help them very much. Whether it's flat or round is really not very important. What's important is that we have some appreciation that what's being described in the Bhagavatam here is not someone's imagination, someone's hallucination. It's actually Shukadeva Goswami, who's heard from actually real authorities about how the universe is actually situated, and try to appreciate that for whatever that the scientists, when they look up in the sky and they think that the whole universe is like light years, it's just their imagination. And when they say they went to the moon or Mars, they're just collecting money for their daughter's wedding. That's all. Nothing more than that. And just like for the moon planet, they said they took so many pictures, thousands of pictures, tens of them. And yet, when they were asked to supply those pictures, they say, somehow or another in our archive, everything was lost. So how can you be more cheating than that? What they consider the most important event in human history, they took pictures. They had cameras that were attached to their waist. You couldn't even look inside of it. And they took these perfect pictures. And yet, all these pictures, the thousands of pictures that they took, were somehow or another, they all disappeared. Anyhow, so much is going on. The people, either can't do it, they don't care about it, they can't do anything about it, or they actually believe it. In any case, I don't believe it. But as far as what's going on here in the Mount Meru, the Ganges, seems a lot more reasonable than everything came out of nothing. And that everything's out of control here. Doesn't explain how the planets are moving their orbits. Doesn't explain how we get exactly the amount of heat and light we need to maintain ourselves. It doesn't explain anything. This explains their materialistic, atheistic philosophy, because they're envious of God and His creation, and they're doing their best that they can to become the supreme here. But they're not becoming very successful. Either in their explanation, which is always changing, there's no limit to how much their explanations change. They look through an imperfect telescope with their imperfect eyes, and they come up with some imperfect theory, which always turns out to be wrong. if someone else comes up with another imperfect theory to go beyond it. So again, we'll keep on reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. The branch of the Ganges known as Sita flows through the Brahmapuri atop Mount Meru, and from there it runs down to the nearby peaks of the Kesarachala Mountains, which stand almost as high as Mount Meru itself. These mountains are like a bunch of filaments around Mount Meru. From the Kesarachala Mountains, the Ganges falls to the peak of the Gandhamadana Mountain, and then flows into the land of Bharatvarsha. Finally, it reaches the ocean of salt water in the west. This is very technical. So our Mount Everest is like a little tiny bush compared to these other great mountains. The only real important mountain on our planet is Govardhan. And even that is sinking due to some curse by the Dronachala. So again, the branch of the Ganges known as the Sita. So this is, flows through Brahmapuri. So this is where locating more exactly. So there's a branch called Sita, and it's flowing through Brahmapuri, where Lord Brahma lives, top Mount Meru. There it runs down to the nearby peaks of the Kesarachala Mountains. So I don't think we've seen the Kesarachala Mountains because it's near Mount Meru, I guess, and its peaks are quite high, obviously. But stands almost as high as Mount Meru itself. So there's a mountain. There's a mountain called the Kesarachala Mountains, which are near Mount Meru, which is 120,000 yojanas high. It's quite high. I think they say around the Earth planet, supposedly like 24,000 or 30,000 miles around. So imagine something which is hundreds and thousands of miles high. And there's other mountains there. And these mountains are like a bunch of filaments around Mount Meru. So there's all other mountains close to Mount Meru surrounding it. And the Ganges falls to the peak of Gandhamadana Mountain. And this is where Priyavrata Maharaj was being instructed by Narada Muni, not a small little hill somewhere. And then Ganges flows through those mountains, the land of Bharatvarsha. And we're just in some part of Bharatvarsha, where there are Ganges. And then finally it reaches the salt water in the west. Now we have some idea of where east and west are in this universe. And Ganges is flowing into the saltwater ocean. The branch of the Ganges known as Chakshu, which falls into the summit of Malayavan Mountain, and from there cascades into the land of Kamala Varsha. The Ganges flows incessantly through Kamala Varsha, and in this way it reaches the ocean of salt water in the west. So when it says that Pariksha Maharaj or Yudhisthira Maharaj was the ruler of this planet, what they were talking about is Jambudvip, not this little Bharatvarsha that we're presently in. But in Bharatvarsha itself, the land of India, which is known, part of which is now India, where Krishna appeared, that's the most significant part of the universe. Because Krishna appears there personally. So therefore it's some special place. So we might want to feel ourselves special, so at least we know that we've taken birth, know where Krishna has appeared. And the center of the whole universe is at Kurukshetra. There's something special about where we are, But if we understand how special it is and why it's special, we can take advantage of it. Otherwise, it's useless. Even you take birth in Vrindavan, where Krishna took his, or Mathura, where Krishna took his birth. If you don't understand it properly, then it's not so valuable. The branch of the Ganges known as Bhadra flows from the northern side of Mount Meru. Waters fall into the peaks of Kumudra Mountain, Mount Nila, Sweta Mountain, and Shringavan Mountain in succession. Then it runs down to the province of Kuru, and after that, crossing through the land, flows into the saltwater ocean in the north. So in case you happen to be on a journey and you happen to get to, well, anyhow, I don't think it's possible in this age of Kali to reach those places, but anyhow, here it's describing for us. Similarly, the branch of the Ganges known as Alaknanda Mount flows from the southern side of Brahmapuri, Brahmasadhana, passing over the tops of the mountains in various lands, falls down with fearful force upon the mountain, peaks of the mountain, Hemakuta and Hemakuta. After inundating the tops of those mountains, the Ganges falls down into the tract of land known as Bharadvarsha, which he also inundates. Then the Ganges flows into the ocean of salt water in the north. Persons who come to bathe in this river are fortunate. It's not very difficult for them to achieve. With every step, the results of performing great sacrifices like Rajasuya and Ashwamedha yagas. Report, the place where the Ganges flows into the salt water of the Bay of Bengal is still known as Ganga Sagara, or the meeting place of the Ganges in the Bay of Bengal. On Makara Sankranti, in the month of January to February, thousands of people still go to the bay hoping to be liberated. That they can actually be liberated in this way is confirmed herein. For those who bathe in the Ganges at any time, the results of great sacrifices like the Ashwamedha and the Rajasuya yagas are not at all difficult to achieve. Most people in India are still inclined to bathe in the Ganges. There are many places where they can do so. At Prayag, Allahabad, many thousand people gathered during the month of January to bathe in the confluence of the Ganges and Jamuna. Afterwards, many of them go to the confluence of the Bay of Bengal and the Ganges to take bath there. Thus, it is a special facility for all the people of India that they can bathe in the water of the Ganges at so many places of pilgrimage. I don't think here in New Zealand you have that opportunity. Although, since the Ganges is flowing into the saltwater ocean, therefore there must be some Ganges there. And according to our consciousness, that will determine what the results are. Even when we go to the Kumbh Mela, when we bathe there, if our consciousness is to give some material benediction, that's most we're going to get from the bath. It won't liberate us. It'll just may elevate us and may develop some faith in the Ganges, but ultimately, for those who have materialistic objectives, the material world is open to this material prosperity, temporary material prosperity, either in this planet or other planets, but ultimately will not give liberation. Only for those who actually understand what liberation is, that what actually real moksha is, can actually get real benefit from such activities. Otherwise, developing faith in the Vedas will also be helpful, especially if one can ultimately understand what the purpose behind the Vedas are. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yomam eva samudo janati purushottama sarvavit bhajante mam sarvabhavena bharata. That anyone who knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without any doubt, said to be the knower of everything, and therefore engages himself in full devotional service. Iti goyatma shastram idam yukva mayanaga. Iti goyatma shastram idam yukva Iti Guyatma Shastramidam Yukva Mayanaga, Etam Bhutva Buddhimasyat Krita Krita Shvarata. That this is the most confident part of all the Vedic literature. Anyone who knows this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfect. So I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions. Yes. First thing I talked to was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. About how we're going to be able to understand. This is where we can use our imagination, because we're not going to probably get direct experience of these varshas. So we have What was that? Slowly. Varsha. Yeah. Right. No, not so much. Not so. And the higher planetary systems, maybe some. If you're on Brahma Loka, maybe some cloud appears in the sky. Nothing much. It's like, here we're in Kali Yuga, but not every place is equally affected in Kali Yuga. No, they're actually mountains. Do you think Mount Everest is a subtle form of a mountain? You think like that? That Mount Everest is a subtle mountain? No, not a subtle mountain. They're not subtle. This is real. Otherwise, you think the Ganges is flowing through a subtle mountain? What? You think Brahma is on a subtle place on Mount Meru, which is made of gold, is subtle? It's made of gold. But we're in Kali Yuga. We're on Bharadvarsha and part of Jambudvip in Kali Yuga. Therefore, everything is, Mother Earth is hiding everything from the demons. When Krishna was here, Sudama Vipra, when he got the benediction, and he got a palace greater than that of Indra with a coral situated in coral, and there was gold and marble floors, and there was so many opulence. It wasn't subtle, it was real. It was, solid. It was made out of the same energy: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These, Krishna says, they make up things in the material world. They're not necessarily subtle. Mind, intelligence, false ego, he said, is subtle. Not earth, water, fire, and ether. I know we have little experience. We have we've been brainwashed and think we know everything. We can't see it, it doesn't exist according to us. We can't see ourselves, but that doesn't mean we don't exist. What's that? They're not in subtle form either. People saw them when they came here to this planet. You think when Lord Brahma came and stole the cowherd boys, he came in some subtle form that no one could see? He offered prayers to Krishna, it was some subtle form no one could see. His body is also made of the 5 elements. It's just a greater quantity of intelligence and ether, just different proportions. But also Brahma, when the sun god chased after Brahma, or chasing after his daughter, you think he was chasing after some subtle form? Yes. What's that? Can you hear what she said? Why not? At least he said, when no one came to a program, he said, well, didn't you see? Narada Muni was here, demigods were. Why not? If he could see Krishna, why couldn't he see Narada Muni? No, not subtle form. They come in a form that probably we just don't see. We can't even see what's at the tip of our nose, what to speak of nose. Not subtle. It's just for a dog, he can see. For instance, some animals can see things that we can't even conceive of. Does that mean that they're seeing things in a subtle form? They're just seeing things differently from us because they have greater vision in some respects. What's that? No, subtle means mind, intelligence, and false ego. Those are subtle. The others are gross. Bhumirapalo vayu kamano buddha evacha ahankariti yame bina prakriti. Krishna divides earth, water, fire, air, and ether as the gross material elements. No, air, no. Solid means that which is primarily, could be visible, we could say. Well, water it has a solidity. Water has a propensity for cohesion. Fire has the energy of transformation. Air has the energy of movement. So these are energies and the different from gross to subtle. In other words, earth is more solid and has all the other properties of the other more subtle elements such as water, fire, air, and ether. So to our vision, something may appear to be solid, and something may be solid to someone else's vision, but which is not within our capacity to see how it's relatively more solid than water and earth. Water is always going to be the element that's going to cause cohesion. Fire is always going to be the element that causes transformation. Air is going to cause movement, and ether is going to have the ability to make things have in its place. To our vision, we may not see something which is to someone else is solid. To us, it may be we consider it subtle, but that's subtle to our vision because we don't see very well. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Where in Srimad Bhagavatam, like, is the earth actually described as flat? Because Srila Prabhupada described it as a globe many times in Bhugola.
We probably didn't want to get into it. I mean, we're reading the fifth canto.
Yeah.
Tumbleweed.
Because
It was globe.
Sutta Prabhu, Suttapada Prabhu, Suttapa Prabhu was a scientist devotee that wrote the books on Vedic cosmology. He was describing it as a Sataputta Prabhu, sorry, yeah. So one of the videos I was saying, he was also describing it as a globe because of the points.
He describes it as, why would we get into a fight with the sun on such an insignificant thing? We were trying to convince them to chant Hare Krishna. Yeah, so Buddha, he changed his mind anyway. He was a mathematician. First of all, he wasn't even a scientist. He was a mathematician. He changed his mind around. Maybe because of his audience, and maybe because he just was a conditioned soul like the rest of us. Changed his mind. He wrote, you read his books, and let's see, sometimes he described it as a globe, sometimes as whatever sometimes as a Dambudvik. But anyhow, our authority is not Satiputta. Our authority is Srimad Bhagavatam. Our authority is Priyarata, dividing up the Bhardvarsha. Lord Varaha became Bhardvarsha, not a little tiny globe on his tusk. This incarnation doesn't have to come. pick up this tiny little earth. Came to pick up the whole of Bhumandala. That's what it describes in the Bhagavatam. But anyway, we don't want to get into a fight with these scientists. So better off because otherwise we'll just be wasting our time and their time. We want to get them to chant Hare Krishna so they can realize the real important thing, not whether the earth's the globe or flat, to realize that there's a lot of souls here who are conditioned by material nature. If they don't act properly in Kali Yuga, they're going to get into a very difficult situation. That's more important than all this other controversies, how the earth is formed. But when it gets down to it, we accept Bhagavatam as our authority, not some material scientists. But we take Prabhupada's example that he didn't emphasize it so much, or he wrote different places in order to, according to his audience, so he actually discussed more important things. When we get down to the basic facts, we use Bhagavatam as our basic authority. Prabhupada's preaching may have been according to time, place, and audience, but the ultimate authority is the Srimad Bhagavatam.
So Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't describe it as a Bhugola. Bhugola, or there's often said Bhugol, gol means round. Does it Bhagavatam? Bhumandala, but the word Bhugola is not in Bhagavatam. Bhugola, gol means round. Yeah.
Whatever.
Now I'm just wondering, like specifically, is it mentioned that it's flat?
No, it's can't do the Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't even know. You have to show me the word for a goal, what that means, whatever the variety of meanings are. But this is describing cosmology in the fifth canto. And cosmology is throughout the Bhagavatam. The earth was divided into 7 regions, 7 planetary systems, of which Bhumandala is supposed to, describes there's so many hundreds, so many thousands of miles across, and there's Lakshmi Dweep, Samanta Dweep, all these different dweepas. And they're not described as little tiny islands, big vast islands, each one twice the size of the next. Each ocean is twice the size of the next. So that's our ultimate authority. Anything else? Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
His Holiness Prahladananda Maharaj Ki Jai.
Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Jai.